Okay, we are live.
See us on the Facebooks. Is it on YouTube as well?
Okay, it's not letting me. Do you have sound on?
Oh, no, I don't. Do I need to turn it on, or are you trying to hear something?
No, I can hear something. Oh, never mind.
It's dead silent over here.
All right, I'm going to start this record. Welcome back to the Fantasy Football Heat Seekers podcast. I'm your host, Rick Butts, here once again with the legendary Brad Menendez. How you doing today, Brad?
Living the dream, brother. How are you?
I'm doing well, very, very well. Um, Tonight, we're going to talk about normal news and notes. We've got some injuries that have already been announced, guys that are going to be missing this week. We've got some guys coming back from injury this week, and some guys coming back from suspension this week that we probably should talk about a little bit. And then we are going to be going through position by position uh, the top guys in looking at guys that are outperforming where they were projected to be, and then also looking at some guys that are underperforming and try to figure out if it's something that's going to stick or if we can expect these guys to flip from where they are and either drop in the rankings or work themselves up the rankings. From where we're at right now, a quarter of the way through the season, most teams have played 4 games. We had 2 teams on bye last week, and that was it. So a good portion of them have played uh, their 4 games so far. A quarter of the way through the season already. It's amazing to think. It goes so fast, Brad. It goes so fast.
We'll be talking rookie 2020 before we know it. Paul will be excited about it.
That is so crazy to me that we're already even thinking about rookie talk. That is
Well,
nuts.
well, yeah. Some of the podcasts, some of the other podcasts that I listen to have already, kind of started players to watch out for, and things like that. So it's slowly going to move its way that way. Before we know it, it'll be hot and heavy rookie talk.
Well, I don't want to think about it, so we're going to quit talking about it right now. I still think that it's way too early, even in the college season, to project where these guys are going to be. I don't even start looking at rookies until January. There will be guys that say that you got to watch a lot of tape and whatnot, but, last year was a perfect example of you could watch all the college tape you wanted, but it meant nothing when it came to the NFL draft, who they valued, and all that fun stuff. So,
Well, and with the guys that are watching a lot of tape, I'd be interested to see how their rosters are doing, or what they do for a day job, because you really, throughout the fantasy season, you really have to focus on roster management. I mean, I'm sending out trade offers like crazy every day. I'm looking free agents, trying to hit the waiver wire, get my team ready for a playoff run. I mean, guys that worry about watching a ton of tape right now, other than enjoying Saturday football, I mean, that's just, come on, that's just crazy.
yeah, and what you see too is a lot of guys that look good on tape in college, there's many reasons for that.
Hmm.
One could be their competition level is low. Another could be that I go back to like Ronald Jones, and I think like you could drive semi trucks through the holes that guy was running through at USC with that offensive line, and you've got all those types of things. Obviously Alabama guys are going to look good when they play like the bottom echelon of NCAA teams, and every college team plays teams that are not very good and shouldn't be playing those you know uh, Power Five schools and whatnot. But there's just a lot of stuff that goes into it. You can't just look at a college player and say this guy looks good or bad. Quarterbacks have bad wide receiver groups, and that doesn't help them. Very good wide receivers have terrible quarterbacks, and that doesn't help them. So there's just so much stuff that you really gotta evaluate when you're looking at just college tape in general. So I don't spend a lot of time on that. What I want to know is how are these NFL teams valuing them, because
Hmm.
they've got a whole different perspective that we'll never know. We're not sitting in on the conversations they have uh, during the
During scouting
combine
combine.
and
Yeah.
their pro days and all that stuff. We're not privy to all that information, and that is very valuable, or else the NFL wouldn't do it. But they
Right.
literally build a whole event around it because it's that important to them. So yeah, I mean, you can talk rookies, and you're going to have some guys that just stick out no matter what. But until these NFL teams start valuing them, I have a hard time with it. Obviously, I loved ESB coming out, but he dropped. Harmon last year dropped. So it's just I want to see how these teams value these guys, and then go from there.
Well, and you want to see that. I think the closest we get is, I like to listen to, guys that were, so like the Daniel Jeremiahs and Bucky Brookses of the world that have been scouts, because at least they know what teams are looking at. Even if they don't know what the teams are looking at today, they've got some sort of history that they can go on. Like I've never been a pro scout. Like I don't work for an NFL franchise. So I would trust a guy who actually has done the job at least slightly more than me. And following a lot of these guys on social media and listening to some of their stuff. Now, obviously, some of it's going to be biased because some of them work for certain networks and are probably have to say certain things. But at least it gives me a gauge and an understanding of what these teams are saying. But on a side note, I think I have to say that my love for Minshew is probably matched by your hatred for Rojo. Like I think you hate Rojo as much as I love Minshew.
It's I don't for one, I don't hate the kid. I hate the talent. I
Yeah,
hate the
I'm
talent.
saying the fantasy player,
Well,
not the person.
but it's different because you love like Minshew, like you want to hang out with him. It's like I'll still hang out with Ronald Jones. I just don't think that he's an NFL running back, and I don't think that he'll remain an NFL running back, long term. Uh,
Sure.
we can look at it right now. He's not even taking the job from Ronald or from
Hey, Barber. Yeah.
Peyton Barber. Like, where would he be? Like, the only other team that he'd be getting touches on is Miami, and nobody wants to get touches on Miami either. So, you know, I don't hate the kid. I don't like the talent. And Minshew, I love the kid. I don't love the talent.
Oh. He's
It's
he's not amazing, but he's definitely got a good story and he's hilarious.
no, it is definitely a great story, and I want the kid to do well. And it's not that I don't want Ronald Jones to do well. The
I just don't
only
think
Yeah, I just don't think he will. And at this point, I've spoken on that so much that now I really kind of hope he doesn't, just because it would make me look really bad.
backfire in your
But
face, right?
it's not the first time. There's actually some guys that I'm gonna have to eat crow on right now. James Washington is one of them. Deontay Johnson is getting way more looks than him. I don't know if it was just the way the Bengals matchup went or what. Washington did get some looks the week before, but right now it's looking like I was wrong on that one. The only thing I can say there is that, well, I didn't hate Johnson, but Moncrief's gone, so that's good news.
Yeah, Moncrief's terrible. Well, but we said it coming out that Washington was going to take a little time. We both really like him, and he's a guy that will develop, and he's got the just like we talked about what we don't like about Rojo, his talent and his skill. We don't say that about Washington. Washington has the talent and the skill, and it just so happens that he's not getting the same amount of love that Johnson is right now. That'll change. Mason off as he settles in, if he can really continue to grow and develop as a quarterback, I mean, he's going to be able to support a couple of wide receivers. I mean, look at he's not even making Juju look very good right now. I mean, and
Yeah,
Juju's supposed to be their star, so it's hard to base it on a few games, but I still think there's bright future for all three of those wide receivers. I mean, they're all quality receivers.
absolutely. So we got Titty Boy McGee over on Twitch. He said, "Hey,
Oh, he's back.
he said, "Hey, Uncle Rick," and then he said, "Daddy Brad looking like a meal with that fresh cut and the beard trim."
Got to look good for you, son.
Our show gets weirder every week. Uh, okay, some news. So,
I think the
Christian
biggest
Kirk,
news. Oh, yeah, go ahead.
go ahead, because you seem to have some big news. So we'll
Well, the
start with that.
biggest news would be Tyreek Hill returns to practice. He's ahead of schedule.
Yes,
So Tyreek is back to, as of today, and he's
I
running and
was going
throwing.
with the inactives first, but we'll go ahead and start
Oh,
with the guys coming back then. No,
I was going with order of importance.
Tyreek Hill is, well, I try to be ordered somewhat, so I try to do inactive so people don't get confused. Brad, come on. Our audience. I'm not saying our audience is easily confused, but they are.
they're maybe they're easily amused. Maybe that's what it is.
um, yeah, Tyreek Hill. That offense looked normal last week. My video and audio is not real synced.
I think it's messing with you. Yeah, I mean, it
Let Let me
oh,
try this. Tell me if this is better. I switched something up, so let me know if that's better after you watch for a minute or two. Um, but yeah, I mean, this offense looked very normal last week for the first time, and I don't know how long.
right, man.
It looked normal, and people they want to hype up Hardman, they want to hype up Robinson all they want, but those guys don't hold Tyreek's jockstrap, if we're
Not
being
even close.
honest. And what this does is this is going to help Sammy Watkins for one, because I guarantee it. The first 2 weeks without Hill, what team said was, "Let's make Hardman and Robinson beat us, and let's shut down Kelsey and Watkins."
Did
And I mean, they didn't shut them down. They were just
yeah, right.
average
But the other guys
when
beat him.
those weeks.
Saw deep
But
play.
the other guys did beat them, yes. So then last week the Lions said, okay, well, we've got to concentrate on everybody. Obviously, these guys all have speed. We can't let them beat us deep. And the Lions did a very good job of not getting beat deep, and it was very impressive without Darius Slay. That was a game that once Slay was out, I was targeting hardcore. Didn't work out unless you played the other side of it, because the other quarterback had 3 touchdowns and nobody. If we go into the week, if somebody would have said Stafford will have 3 more touchdowns than Patrick Mahomes, you would have said there's no way in hell.
Absolutely. Yeah, it was surprising, but my Kenny Galladay shares were happy about that.
So yeah, Tyreek coming back, that's big. The Giants have a receiver coming back from suspension. Um, Golden Tate, who you're very familiar with. This guy's going to help that offense. It gives them another weapon. He can be utilized, big time in that short to intermediate game, and he's real good with the ball in his hands after the catch. So it just adds another dimension to this offense, obviously, that's missing Saquon. But if Saquon, who's also saying he's going to beat his timetable, and when he gets back, this
Huge.
this offense went from being blah, we weren't excited about it, to what are they going to be able to do with all these pieces with Daniel Jones at the helm rather than one Eli Manning? That's
Oh yeah,
exciting.
Daniel Jones really changes the dynamic of this offense, and it's for the better. I mean, the Giants even now, I mean, are supporting multiple players. Evan Ingram is one of the top tight ends in fantasy right now, and obviously we would like to see a little more out of Sterling Shepard, but there's Wayne Gallman's a thing while Saquon's hurt. I mean, Daniel Jones really did bring the spark they needed, and I'm excited for Golden Tate. I think in this offense he could do well because it gives them another kind of chess piece that can do a lot of the short to medium type routes that could help Daniel Jones because he's not going to be facing Washington every week, so he's going to need to when he's facing some of these tougher defenses get the ball out quicker, and Golden Tate will help him with that. I think Golden Tate could bounce back and be a really nice kind of wide receiver 3, maybe borderline wide receiver 2 some weeks. So I'm excited for him. I hated to see him.
Yeah, I definitely think he's going to command a lot of targets in this offense. It does hurt your Shepard and Ingram shares just a little bit. I think Ingram's going to stay pretty consistent because he's just a mismatch. I mean, everybody keeps saying Darren Waller's a wide receiver at tight end. Ingram's a wide receiver at tight end also, and I think he's a better athlete. So definitely look forward to that offense. The nice thing is that even with a little less volume, they should have more touchdown upside. That makes up for it a little bit.
Absolutely.
Other guys that could be coming back this week, Taylor Gabriel missed last week. Not much of note there, but it is Bears versus Oakland in London, so uh, the Bears passing offense could be a little bit better than it was last week. Um, Not that Taylor Gabriel is going to come out like 2 weeks ago and match his career totals in one quarter, but so it's possible he comes back. I'm trying to think of who else we heard about. I don't think there's any other real notable players working their way back, but we did find out that it's very unlikely that Christian Kirk is going to play this week for the Cardinals, and they're going to actually be down 2 wide receivers because Demir Bird looks like he's not going to play. So the guys that have got work so far this year, Fitzgerald, who's the ageless wonder, and then Keyshawn Johnson, the rookie, um, looks like they're going to get an uptick in targets because we know Arizona's going to throw the ball a
Right.
lot. Yeah, I guess we should note that Michael Gallup is possible at coming back this week. He hasn't been ruled out, but they haven't said he's going to play.
Well, he hasn't practiced
Uh,
full, so I'd be surprised.
it's only Wednesday.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know that he's going to come back, but it's possible that he'll be back. So you want to watch that. That kills the Devin Smith action if you were still putting any money on that one.
Right.
Um, but other injuries.
John Brown or John Brown, John Ross is gone to IR.
Oh, yes, 6 to 8 weeks.
Yeah. Well, I think with the IR designation, he has to be out 8 weeks, doesn't he?
The one thing I seen said six
Oh,
to eight
okay.
weeks, but I don't know exactly. They've got so many different rules for that IR spot, and
Yeah.
coming back here, coming back then, and I'm not sure if it's 6 or 8 weeks that he has to be out, but he's gonna be out a while, which opens up Auden Tate, who was already starting to get some looks the past 2 weeks, and we kind of figured Tate would kind of disappear when AJ Green gets back. And hopefully AJ Green's only a week or two away here. It'd be nice to get him back on the field. But Auden Tate looks like he's gonna get a chance to shine here for, you know, at least a good portion of the next 8 weeks. So for those of you that were Auden Tate fans coming out, keep an eye on him and how he performs.
Yeah, this will be a big step for him. I know that wasn't he a Florida State kid? I know that Paul talked him up a little bit.
Oh Jesus.
But
Paul
I
didn't show up, so
Paul's not here yet. Well, and because I'd stashed him in a couple places in a couple leagues, and just because he's a big wide receiver that I've heard him and a few other guys in chats mention a little bit here and there, but hopefully this is a big break because he needs it. If he wants to start making his way up the pecking order, this is the perfect time for him with all these guys hurt.
yeah. I mean, he's only a second year guy. You know, he was real raw coming out. Uh, you know, people loved his size, but he was just a raw wide receiver. So uh, he wasn't highly touted. But he does have some skill, and he's performed in preseason and the last two games. He's looked pretty well. So definitely a guy to keep an eye on. I have him stashed in a lot of spots,
Yeah.
So I would love for him to break out. It would help me. Um, who else do we have? Oh, Wayne Gallman popped up on the injury report.
Oh yeah. Yep. He did. From
Um,
what I saw, it didn't seem
you
like it
know,
was super serious, but
yeah, doesn't sound serious. Um, uh, Roquan Smith, who was held out for personal reasons, very ominous last Sunday. Like, literally popped up on the report 15 minutes before actives and inactives were put out, was held out of the game for personal reasons. There's no story or anything of why he was held out, but he is right now. It looks like he's going to play, so that's good. Whenever you hear that stuff, you worry. And I'm a Bears fan, so I probably worry a little bit more. But you worry about these guys when you hear these personal reasons, especially like that late before a game. Um, so I'm just glad that he's all right. They were saying he was acting real weird around the facilities for a couple weeks.
oh really?
So yeah, you never know like what somebody's going through. Uh, so it's just good that it looks like he's going to be back.
Chris in the chat wants to know about T.Y. Hilton. Him and Marlon Mack still didn't practice today, but that doesn't necessarily mean anything. It seemed like him and Mack were trending in the right direction yesterday, so definitely keep an eye on it. Obviously neither of them go till Sunday, so um, just be careful.
Saquon Barkley is running on his ankle, but unlikely to play this week. We may only have a 2 week absence. This guy is not even human. This is nuts. Like this was something 6 to 8 weeks. The guy's already running on it, and I don't care if it's just light jogging. Like it's amazing
Putting the
that
pressure,
we've.
yeah,
it's it's nuts, man. This dude's just unreal.
yeah. I mean, for them, I would be careful. Like, they can't imagine that they're really going to go places this season. I mean, in the NFC East, Philadelphia and Dallas are the teams to beat. Obviously they've both shown that they're vulnerable. Philly more so just because of injuries, but Dallas because they haven't really played anybody good until New Orleans and they lost. But if I was the Giants, I wouldn't be so in a hurry to rush him back. You want to keep this kid safe, and if he comes back too quickly and hurts it again,
You're t- you
I
are
know,
you
I
are the
know, I
most
know.
worried guy ever. They need to sell tickets though, so they're not gonna. I said it before the season. I said it. I said red shirt them, set them out. Wait. But I also didn't think that they would go to Daniel Jones as quick as they did, because they had been real stubborn with Eli. But I want Barkley on the field. Football's better with Barkley playing. I don't think they'll put him in there before he's cleared and well, obviously they won't put him in there before he's cleared, but they won't put him in there before he's ready to go. They're not going to risk it. It's a big investment. Um, but they're winning games, and that division is winnable.
Absolutely.
Like they could make the playoffs in that division. So the quicker they get him back, the better for them. Um, Sam Darnold. Uh, he's not quarantined anymore,
That's a plus.
but he cannot lift weights or anything yet, so he's not going to be back for at least a couple weeks. Um, I would expect probably at least missing the next two games before he gets back if he's not lifting weights yet.
Yeah, I would probably guess that, and again, this is another situation where why hurry him back? I mean, the Jets aren't going anywhere this season. You know, make sure he's healthy. I mean, not often guys get mono, so be careful with the kid.
Okay, last injury, and then I'm going to answer Titty Boy McGee's question over on Twitch. Uh, Guskowski,
IR.
IR surgery done for 2019. It's gonna be weird seeing other people kick for the
Well,
Patriots.
I thought it was strange because the first report I saw this morning or earlier today, it wasn't this morning, it's kind of midday, was the Patriots had worked out a bunch of kickers. I was like, I know Goskowski's missed some extra points here recently, but basically every kicker in the NFL is missing kicks right now. And then all of a sudden that news came out. So I was surprised, but he's 35. I mean, they got to start thinking about the future anyway.
Yeah, that's the ageless wonders at kicker. Um, they're probably gonna sign somebody and they won't miss a kick the rest of the year because that's just how it goes for Patriots. Which gets to uh, our Twitch question: what did you guys think about the Bills and Patriots games in terms of the Bills' performance? I was live Sunday morning and I said this seemed like a trap game. Like the Bills and the Patriots are both very good defenses. I figured it was going to be low scoring, but the Bills' defense is good enough to keep them in any game. And when you can stay in any game, you can win any game. And obviously, Allen, the problem with him in games like this is that he turns the ball over so damn much. Um, but they definitely got hurt when Allen went into concussion protocol and Matt Barkley was in the game because Matt Barkley's not good.
Matt Barkley is not good, hence why he's a backup. You know,
A journeyman backup
yeah,
at that.
he's been
Like,
everywhere.
you know, the better backups stick around in the same spot for a long time. Those teams keep them around even if they don't see the field. Matt Barkley is the one where people are like, "Shit, you're not even good enough to be our second." So go find somewhere else. Okay, let's get into this, man. Let's get into the bread and butter. Um, let's go ahead. What position do we want to start with? We got anybody? Our chats are real quiet tonight. It's
We got
weird.
some stuff going on Facebook, but um,
Oh, Devonte Adams is out. Devonte Adams is out.
oh yeah, yep, yep. That happened.
At least most likely. I don't know if it's confirmed out, but it sounds like he's gonna be out. Like he's not gonna. So,
Let's see here.
but
He's been
let's
held
go
out of
ahead and get into
practice. We
this.
should say that much.
Yeah,
For a guy like
yeah. I
him,
mean,
doesn't
but
always
it
game one.
sounds like he's out for sure. It just hasn't been confirmed yet. Um, okay, what position we want to start with?
Yeah, we might as well get a quarterback. Might as well start it at the top and hit it hard.
Oh damn! You picked the worst position,
Hey,
most
start
boring.
with crap.
You just want to talk about
Who
Minshew.
doesn't want to talk about Minshew?
But we're not going to talk about Minshew tonight,
ESPN talks about
just
Minshew.
because.
That video, Uncle Rico video, is sweet.
All right. Yeah, I keep tagging you and stuff. You can enjoy that. We don't have to talk about him on the show. Um, Starting off at the top, the number one quarterback in fantasy through 4 weeks is not Patrick Mahomes. Now, obviously, if you play in some different variants, then he may be. Through if passing touchdowns are worth 6 points, I think most people play in the standard, 4 point touchdown leagues and whatnot. Lamar Jackson is averaging 28.1 fantasy points per game. Patrick Mahomes, 26.2. Uh, little under, I think it's 7.5 points right now that separates the two,
Hmm.
um, which is, half of a Case Keenum game, if you want to put it
I'll say the
that
way
way.
Case was playing,
So,
okay, well, the way Case has been playing, he'll have to play a few more years before he catches that point.
right? So I mean, I think it's somewhat of a surprise that we see Lamar, or just that we see anybody that's not Patrick Mahomes, at the top of this list through 4 weeks.
Well, for me, it's how Lamar's doing it. Like you would think, oh man, he's getting all that. He must have like 8 or 9 rushing touchdowns. No, he's got 10 passing touchdowns. So he's doing it with his arm and not his feet, and that's the thing that's the most amazing to me.
Absolutely, and obviously he started with a couple soft matchups, I would say, and by soft I
It's
mean
the Dolphins and the Cardinals.
Arizona and
Yeah,
Miami.
right,
So not great at all, but he's here. And if you have him on your fantasy team and you've been starting him, you've been reaping the benefits of that. So he sticks out there as a surprise being at number one, just because people did not expect those 10 passing touchdowns, no matter who he played.
right.
Nobody expected it. Um,
Maybe that over a full season, but not in 4 games.
we're not going to really talk about the next two guys because it's Patrick Mahomes and Russell Wilson. We know these guys are super efficient, and top quarterbacks, NFL quarterbacks. Wilson's throwing the ball more. I predicted that. Um, that helps him. But at four is Dak Prescott. And I've got a fun stat for everybody. But I want you to tell me what your thoughts are on Dak Prescott so far through 4 games.
Um, you know, I, it's he faced off teams. Giants, Redskins, Dolphins, then the Saints. So he was averaging a ton of points against crap teams, and then against the Saints, what did he get, like 8, 9 points?
Let's get this straight though, because all four of those teams are in the top five of giving up fantasy points to the quarterback. So in his first 4 weeks, he faced four of the five worst teams against the quarterback for fantasy purposes. Three of them he excelled in. The other one he did not.
Right.
And I do expect the Saints to work out of that top five.
Oh, for sure. They're
Um,
solid.
but but yeah, these are inflated
And
numbers.
it only gets worse because he got the Packers this week.
Yes,
So,
and I think we actually talked about it last week with the schedule that he's got coming up. He's got kind of a brutal schedule. He gets the Packers, and then I think there's a 2 game stretch where he's fine, but then there's like 5 games where you just can't start him.
right.
It's
Especially
nasty.
come playoff time.
So this is one for me that's not gonna stick. I wouldn't be overly surprised if the top three remained Lamar, Patrick, Russell in any different order. But this number four spot is gonna drop
Oh,
like a rock.
absolutely.
Um, then at number five is Carson Wentz. Why don't you talk just a little bit about what Wentz has done so far?
Yeah. I've always been a big fan of Wentz. As long as he's healthy, he is one of the top 10 quarterbacks, and I could easily see him sliding up into the 4 spot. He hasn't faced. It's kind of been a up and down. So he's faced the Redskins and the Lions, who are not great against the pass, but the Redskins are terrible. Detroit's better. But then he also faced the Falcons and the Packers, who are both very good, and he still produced well. I mean, against the Packers team that shuts down everyone else, he still threw for 3 touchdowns. Against the Falcons, who have been good against the pass and not against the run. He throws for almost 250 yards and gets a touchdown. And he obviously rushes in one. So it's not like he's faced crappy teams like we've talked about with Dak Prescott. He's faced a little bit tougher of a slate these first 4 weeks. But his doesn't get a lot easier, though. I mean, this week he's got a soft matchup against the Jets, and then he faces, the Vikings, Cowboys, Bills, and Bears. Not like it's an easy road ahead for him either. So, but I think he's a better all-around quarterback, decision making and ability than a guy like Dak Prescott. What do you think about him?
Absolutely, but his numbers are a little inflated too because that Packers game was weird. He got put in a position for those 3 touchdowns. Like he didn't move them down the field through the air. I think he only had 160 passing yards in that game, but it was a field position game. Turnovers. Miles Sanders had a couple long run backs on kickoffs, and they kind of got set up for those 3 touchdowns. He wasn't like slicing through their
Right.
defense.
No.
When we, it's just easy to think that when somebody throws 3 touchdowns. But if you watch that game, he wasn't slicing them up. It was just
I'd place
pure
it right there.
Yeah, definitely. And you'll have that sometimes, and for fantasy it counts, so we'll take it. um, Number 6 is Deshaun Watson. This dude takes so many sacks. Actually, him and Matt Ryan, we're not going to talk about them much because they're obviously studs. But Deshaun Watson has to quit taking sacks, or else he's going to be injured and not on this list
Right.
anymore.
I mean, that's it's he's got to be smarter because he's just not getting any protection in front of him.
Yeah, he's got to get rid of the ball quicker. He's got to just not take sacks and preserve his body, or else he's going to be like another old Houston Texan quarterback that
David Carr.
David Carr, who just got sacked too many times and could never recover from that. So yeah, him and oh, I guess Matt Ryan's point one points behind him, but we know Matt Ryan. They're slinging the ball in Atlanta. He's going to put up fantasy points. Matt Stafford, kind of a surprise. A lot of people had written him off. Um, but he's played really well so far this season, and I think the help from the running game is really helping him out. Um, in having both Galladay and Marvin Jones healthy definitely helps him out. Last year, like we talked a while back, they were just pulling guys out of the grocery store to put on the field as receivers. I mean, there were guys that we never thought that we would actually throw in the fantasy lineups that we were putting in there. Bruce Ellington,
Oh yeah,
you know.
tough to bring him.
But yeah, so he's slight surprise there at number 8.
Well, I think a lot of people is because of offensive coordinator Darrell Bevel. When you think Bevel, most people thought running. Uh, but the one thing that he really liked to do is he liked the deep ball. Bevel was very known for it, even though he was a big fan of running. And you've seen it so far this year. The games where they've been able to get the ground game going and they get around 100 yards or more, Matt Stafford puts up a ton of points because it opens up so he can throw the ball better. I mean, against the Chargers and Eagles, he wasn't as nearly as efficient because that ground game was just getting stuffed by two good run defenses. But against the Cardinals and Chiefs, I mean, he just lit it up. I think Cardinals, he got close to 400 yards passing and a bunch of touchdowns. And, the Chiefs, obviously, got close to 303 touchdowns. So they need the running game. But I think having tight ends as well helped. Hopefully, this bye gives time for Hawkinson to come back because he's quickly become an important part of that offense as well.
Yeah, don't disagree with any of that. Number 9, we're not going to talk about much. It's Jameis Winston. We know he can put up fantasy points, but is he going to is he going to eat the W, or is he going to choke on it? And that's always been the biggest question. Turns the ball over a lot, and he has done that this year. What, 6 interceptions, 10 touchdowns
And 9-5,
through 4 weeks?
9-5, close.
9 and 5, 9 and 5. I added one to each side, so it
Look
was
at you.
fair. I wasn't just
You weren't
slanting the
biased.
stats and right. I wasn't slanting the stats in my favor here. I gave him an extra touchdown also. But 9 and 6. I mean, it's just it's not the ratio you want from your quarterback. The last 2 weeks have been a little bit better, um,
That's a tough thing.
but again,
Like the tough thing for me is, Bruce Arians fixes quarterbacks. So, the first 2 weeks he looked pretty bad. He had 3 interceptions first game and did nothing against Carolina. So these last 2 games, obviously he's still throwing an interception a game, but is Arians' magic finally start? I don't
I
know.
hate all this. I hate all this Arians magic stuff. Like when you have good quarterbacks, you're not fixing them. I want to know what quarterbacks he fixed because I hear what Ben Roethlisberger, Peyton Manning, Carson Palmer, like
Um,
those are
I think
those have
legitimately,
always been pretty big
well, I
names.
think legitimately he helped Carson Palmer's career because he had gone through some really tough years. But it's not
Well,
just.
yeah, because he was in
Oh,
Cincinnati.
and then he went to Oakland, and it was just bad. He finally wound up in Arizona, where things got better. Um, he worked with all those quarterbacks. Peyton Manning, you can't really say any offensive coordinator helped him. When
Right.
when you listen to who was the punter in Indy, he tells stories about how Peyton Manning's basically running the team and telling guys to get on and off the field and stuff like that. I mean, Peyton, you can't put into that. Big Ben, I think you can say some of it was coordinators, some of it was his ability. Bruce Arians is just a smart offensive mind. So I'm not.
And I'm not.
Oh, go ahead.
Yeah, no, I was just gonna say I'm not saying that he's not smart, but this whole narrative that he fixes quarterbacks, like these guys weren't really broken. Now the systems they were in, um, were, but like Carson Palmer, and Ben Roethlisberger are kind of gunslingers. Always have been, always were, and always will be. Well, except for Carson because he's retired. But I mean, if he's playing on
Maybe he's a
Madden, I'm sure
gunslinger
he's
now.
slinging it on the field. But I always wonder where this narrative comes from that he fixes guys like they were not good. Like Winston has not been good, NFL wise. That isn't the same story that we have with Ben and Carson
Sure.
and Peyton. And those are the names that everybody wants to throw out that he's worked with. So that's my only thing is like, who has he fixed? Tell me somebody's really fixed. And we've talked way too long on Jameis
I
Winston.
thought you said we weren't going to talk about James Winston.
Yeah, I know. I know you had one thing to say there, so say it and let's get on to the next
Yeah,
guy.
I'm just interested to see how he progresses. I don't think Arians, Winston had the talent. He just makes really bad decisions. If Arians can help him fix the bad decision making, this could be a sign of things to come.
That's like my only thing to that is I've never seen that fixed. Whether it was Ryan Leaf or Rex Grossman
Man, you had to pull the
or
bottom of the barrel out on
Jay
me.
Cutler.
Can't win with them.
But I mean, it's the truth though. Like, what guys have we known like that made bad decisions that ever changed? Like, even Brett Favre didn't change. Brett Favre made as many bad decisions as anybody. He could just overcompensate for that for his arm strength, you know, and he could do stuff that other people couldn't do. But he was still a very poor decision
Right.
maker, and most people can't get away with that, and you don't see that fixed very often. I mean, Ryan Fitzpatrick is a terrible decision maker, and the dude's a Harvard graduate, and he couldn't get nobody could fix him.
Right.
So it's like it's not something that is done very often. So that's my only worry there. But we'll see. I mean, he's averaging 20 points for you right now. That's all we care about is especially if you're a redraft, like score me 20 points this year. I don't care if you're quarterback next year. If you're dynasty, it's a little bit
Right.
different. But um, as we found out, you can find quarterbacks. A lot of teams are finding them this year.
Almost 11. Yeah.
Um, yeah, almost a third of all NFL quarterbacks are have
Not the
been
weekend
or
starter. Yeah.
they have been replaced from injury or performance. So Jacoby Brissett, number 10. Everybody was worried. Andrew Luck retiring. He's probably averaging 6 points less than Andrew Luck would have, but he's top 10 quarterback right now, fantasy wise. He's making good decisions
Very good.
that we talk about, not turning the ball over and moving that offense. And I think a lot of people are surprised that he has been as good as he's been. But we said he had no offensive line. They didn't have as many weapons the last time he was at the helm of this offense, and they had no running game basically when he was at the helm of the offense 2 years ago. Marlon Mack's good. Uh, Hilton, when the whole offensive group, wide receivers are there, are good. The two tight ends are good, and it's benefiting Brissett and the Colts.
Absolutely. And they have, I mean, for you redraft guys, they have a really favorable schedule this year overall. I mean, the Chiefs coming up this week, it should be a game where he can air it out a bit more. I mean, and then the rest of the slate is, he doesn't really face too many top 10 defenses. He's got the Broncos in 2 weeks, which they're soft against the run, so you can set the pass up that way. And then the Panthers. But I like Jacoby Brissett. Good kid. Good head on his shoulders. Makes wise decisions with the football. I mean, 10 touchdowns and 2 interceptions will prove it to you. The Raiders game sucked for him. I mean, they all as a team really had a rough go of things, which just shows you that he needs his skill positions healthy. I mean, T.Y. Hilton's a big part of that offense. And you need him and Mac back. So excited for the future.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Number 11 is Philip Rivers. We're not going to talk about him. And then we have Marcus Mariota rounding out the top 12. I think everybody's surprised by this one because this is a guy that I seen ranked outside of the top 24 quarterbacks. Outside of the top 24, he's been very good. He has not turned the ball over yet. He has not turned the ball over. That's what people are always worried about with him. Now they don't pass; they're not a pass-heavy team, so he's probably not going to be able to get out of this. Probably 10 to 14 range is probably his peak end of season because they just don't throw it a ton. But he's been efficient. He's been good, and I always wonder what you're doing when we're on stream.
One,
Like, always you're
I'll say
laughing
one of the
and
guys that's watching the stream is a buddy of mine. He texted me. He had sent me a trade offer, and I told him I try to look after the stream. But it just so happened that to pull up stats, I went to our league page and saw his offer and responded to it. And
and you laughed at it, so it was a terrible
no, it was
offer.
good. Oh no, it was a good offer. He's a Raiders fan, so he said go Raiders when we were talking about Brissett against the Raiders just a minute.
Um, but anyways, Mariota, we said last year he was actually really efficient. They didn't have the touchdowns in the passing game. They didn't have the volume in the passing game, but he also couldn't feel his arm.
Right, kind of a
And
big deal.
now he can feel his arm. They're moving the ball efficiently through the air. Even with Corey Davis having that terrible run of cornerback matchups the first 3 games. And then this week, though, he's going to drop out of the top 12 because they have
Yep.
that matchup that we don't
Yep.
like.
Yeah, he'll be efficient with the ball this week, but he'll probably throw for 140 yards. I mean, it's like
Right.
you're going to see him run the ball probably a lot more because Buffalo gets after the quarterback. Mariota's smart, but one thing that we talked about, and I remember you specifically saying in the offseason, as long as Mariota gets better about being a pocket passer, things will go better for him. And we're seeing that. He's not running the ball nearly as much. I mean, he's only attempting 3 to 4 rushes a game, and that's a much better thing for him. If he stays in the pocket, trusts his offensive line, does his progressions, hits his receivers, lets them make the plays, it'll go a lot better for him, and he'll have a lot longer career. He'll be able to feel his body parts, so that's a good thing.
Absolutely. Okay, so we're going to go through this part quick. Okay, we've got some guys outside of the top 12
Big game,
that people are probably surprised about. Aaron Rodgers,
way down there.
number
Yep.
18, averaging 16.8. He's had some he's had some tough matchups to start. He's already faced Minnesota and Chicago. Neither of them give up a lot of quarterback points. So that's rough. Do you see him moving up these ranks as we
Well, I
go?
think he has to just because of who he is. I mean, he's a dominant quarterback, but he has a tough sledding. This week he faces Dallas, then he faces Detroit. I mean, it's not like the next couple of weeks are going to move him up far. After that, then he faces Raiders, Chiefs, Chargers, Panthers. Then he has a chance to maybe move up a little bit. But yeah, you know,
You can skyrocket through
right.
that stretch.
So it's weird. You definitely don't expect it, but it happen. It can happen to anybody. New system, a lot of hurt players. He can't do it himself. He can't throw and catch the ball.
Baker Mayfield, number 23.
This is another case of a lot of pieces. They're trying to gel together. I expect Baker to get better over time, but I mean, you look at it. What is he averaging? Like 16 points a game. I mean, he's not really doing all that well. Or no, 13 points a game. I mean, it's not looked great for him, and it's not going to be great for him for a little while because he's got 49ers who are solid on defense, Seahawks, then they get a bye, then they got the Patriots and Broncos. I mean, it could still be a while before he gets up into the higher end, but he ends with a super easy slate of games. He's got Cincy, the Arizona, and Cincy again, during the playoffs. So it could
Yeah,
be a great time.
You'll want him
Yeah,
then. You'll want him then.
sure.
All right, let's go ahead and move on over to running back. Okay, there's some names in here we are just not going to talk about because there's no need to. Christian McCaffrey,
Yep.
number one. Dude's a beast. He's a wide receiver and a running back. You get both positions in one player. Never take him out of your lineup. Um, let's see. Alvin Kamara at number five. He had one bad game. He's been pretty good the rest of the way. David Johnson, number seven. We know he's going to be heavily used in the passing game, so he's not a surprise to be in there. Um,
It's probably short list on who
Elliott,
surprises you.
do
That it's
what?
probably shorter list on who surprised you because a lot of these names you'd expect here.
Yeah, the next two for sure. Elliott at 10. Obviously, he wasn't used very much in week one, or else he'd be higher. And then James Conner at 12 catches the ball a ton. Um, and just to go a little bit deeper, Todd Gurley 14. Um, and that's about it. I mean, Saquon was 16 points a game before he got injured. So and he got injured early in that game, so that skews the numbers a little bit. But Austin Eckler, we're not going to talk about him much because we obviously know he is going to be getting replaced. His cohort in the backfield comes back this week, is going to be limited, but Eckler might have another week of relevance, and then we may see it drop off. We don't really know where that's going to go yet, but he is number 2 right now. 26.8 points per game, 107 points overall in PPR formats. If you had him, it was a blessing for these first 4 weeks. And that first quarter of the season, you can set yourself up real good going forward.
Yeah. Oh yeah, he's huge. And and not only have the Chargers already said that he has a role going forward, he was still borderline flex play last year with Melvin Gordon in the lineup. So, Eckler will fall. I mean, inevitably he's probably going to land somewhere around the 20s because he's not going to get nearly, obviously can't average 30 points a game, but I love the guy. I mean, he's a hard worker. He does everything you ask him to do. I watched the Detroit game over and over again, and he's trying to be goal line back. He's catching stuff out of the backfield. So he's a guy that you still should want to target for your team because Melvin Gordon's not going to be there next year, most likely. So, Eckler's proven that he can be the guy.
Go ahead and read Jamie's comment out loud for everybody.
All right, so Jamie, you are stroking the ego, but that's okay because we like that. Your call for me last week on Doyle was epic. Thanks, bro. And Corey Davis. And he
I
and
got
he's
you.
not talking about my call. He's talking about Rick, the man, the myth, the Butts. Rick Butts.
Yeah. People just quit showing up to the stream when I make a bad one. So we don't even hear about those. So I appreciate that, Jamie. And as I said, every Sunday morning I will help you. I do so much studying for DFS. I've got matchups down to a T by the time Sunday morning gets here, and I will do my best to give you the best sit starts. They don't always work out, but I just want to ask everybody that listened and didn't play Philip Dorsett last week if you're happy that you didn't play Philip Dorsett last week.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
Did you play Stephon Diggs?
No,
Because you should
I
have.
did not play him, but I should have.
Why do you don't even listen to me?
Well, it's Sunday morning. I'm not watching the stream. I apologize. I'm in church.
I told everybody all week
Uh,
to start Stephon Diggs.
maybe I didn't listen during the week.
This dude, this dude. Well, now any listeners we had that had any faith, they have lost it
They're like,
all
what is
because
this knucklehead
obviously,
doing?
like Brad doesn't even listen to Rick, so why am I going to? 4-0 in the Roto Heat League with Lamar Jackson and Mason Rudolph.
Hey, that's it. The
Blair
winner.
Dickey showing up on a stream. Blair Dickey never shows up on the streams. He just listens on the podcast.
Dig it.
All right, so Dalvin Cook, number 3. I don't necessarily think this is a surprise because we thought and we said all off season Minnesota's going to run the ball more. Dalvin Cook, if he gets all the touches, is going to be a top 5 back. The guy's super talented, but he sits there. Any thoughts on him, real quick?
Nope. He's solid.
Nick Chubb at number 4. Once again, not very surprising. The surprising bit is how much he's been used in the passing game. It's a real nice surprise, though, because that was my only thing. Like, the difference between Nick Chubb and Derrick Henry, who we will mention, um, is whether or not they catch the ball or not. And Nick Chubb's catching the ball. He's going to be much more valuable than a Derrick Henry, who's a great runner but doesn't catch the ball very often. Any comments on Chubb?
Nope.
Here's one that I think people are surprised about. Mark Ingram at number 6. Averaging 19 points per game. He had one game where he was like injured and out and didn't score very much. The other 3 games have been awesome. I loved Baltimore for any running back. Whichever running back went there, I loved it because what Lamar Jackson does for that running game and that RPO and just everything is awesome. And the touchdown upside with Baltimore's offense being good, Mark Ingram is a guy that I think can stay in this top six. I think he's going to have a lot of value as long as he's in Baltimore.
Well, yeah, I mean, we talked about all off season that once he signed to Baltimore, we're like, all right, you're probably going to get one or two really solid years out of him, and and we're seeing it. So it's a good move. I mean, it's proving that we aren't crazy. So I like it.
Right. I like any proof that I'm not crazy
You
because I need it because people don't believe me sometimes.
already said it.
Um,
Yeah.
Derrick Henry at number 8. Obviously, he's going to have big games where he rushes for a lot of yards, gets a couple touchdowns, but I don't see him sustaining a number 8 ranking. I see him more in the 15 to 18 range, which isn't bad, but I think that if you have him right now and you can sell him, it would be great for you. I think you could buy some of these guys that are lower, um, and upgrade that running back spot basically with getting a throw in on top. But Derrick Henry, 69.6 points, 5 points behind David Johnson. That's a spot ahead of him.
Well, and that's a tough thing. Like Derrick Henry gets a ton of rushing attempts, so it's hard to not like him. At least, but you can't rely on him as your RB1. Like you really, I mean, he's gonna have weeks like he had against Cleveland week one where he blows up, and then he's gonna have weeks like he had last week against Atlanta where they give him the ball 30 times and he does nothing. So it's tough. But if you can sell him, certainly do. I've not seen a lot of trades go through involving him that have looked like something I'd be willing to do. So, you might not get much for him, and that's going to be tough.
Well, the next guy is a perfect example of why you want them to be able to catch the ball. Because we saw Leonard Fournette rush for 225 yards.
Right.
That's only 22 and a half points. That's a lot of work for 22 and a half fantasy points.
This is a lot of work.
Guys do not run for 225 yards very often. So when you don't catch the ball, you're so touchdown reliant. I mean, just think about it. Every 3 catches is half of a touchdown
Right.
just by itself. Like the yardage is great. That's all great, but every 3 catches is if somebody averages 3, that's a half a touchdown a game. That's like getting 8 touchdowns a year.
Hmm.
So when you really think about it, it you he has to score so many more touchdowns than the other guys to be as relevant as them throughout the whole season. But Leonard Fournette, we talked about it last week. The offensive line's not very good. He got stuffed a couple times at the end, brutally like he did the week before. But I think he was pissed from the week before, and said, I'm not getting beat up like that again." And he just went ham and rushed for 225 yards.
Yeah. You know, if he had a good offensive line, man, this dude would be like insane. I mean, he's such a solid running back, and hopefully, you know, this is kind of a fire. I mean, obviously, the first couple weeks he didn't do much against Tennessee. He did pretty good. He probably got you double digit points, a nice double digit game, and then obviously against Denver he broke out. Now the Panthers are a little bit of a soft run game. The Saints can be a soft run game, although they shut out nearly Zeke. But he has a favorable slate, pretty favorable slate for most of the fantasy season. So, Fournette's a guy that if he's behind Derrick Henry and you can trade him for Fournette, I would do it.
Um, yeah, I would absolutely I would. Oh God, I would love it. Leonard Fournette's a monster, and all he needs is for that team to not suck.
Right? They need to get that passing game a little bit more going, and I think that'll help.
And that offensive line to do anything. Okay, so last of the top 12. We got to go quicker, Brad, like always. Aaron Jones, 63 points so far, number 11, being utilized more in the passing game than we had seen in the past. Actually had 7 targets one game, which is like way more than he'd ever seen before.
Mhm.
And now Jamal Williams, who took that brutal hit in their last game, uh, he is out this week. We didn't mention him in the out spot, but nobody really wants to play Jamal Williams in their lineup. but it does affect Aaron Jones.
Right.
And he should get all the work this week. This is a guy that could easily move up this board. He could be a top 6 guy. Um, what are your thoughts on Aaron Jones there?
Big fan. But I also like Jamal. Like I like Jamal Williams as kind of a plotter too. So I really like that they were using him. But Aaron Jones, I think, is far better, superior running back.
Whoever says I like a plotter?
Well, because I know
Like
that.
as soon as I hear plotter, I'm like, I want nothing to do with
Well,
him.
I'm not saying he's a guy that I'm going out and getting. I think I have one share of Jamal Williams in one league. But I know that he could have a spot and get decent production. And obviously Aaron Jones is clearly far better of a running back, and he's the one you want. But you're not getting him for cheap. I tried making offers for him after week 1 when he did nothing, and people still wanted like multiple first round picks. I'm like, yep, I'm good. I'll stay with what I got.
Because they've been listening to me for 2 years.
Yeah.
And they actually listened to me. If you would have bought him 2 years ago, you would have got him a lot
What'd you
cheaper.
say?
But
What
no,
was that?
no. Okay, so a couple guys outside the top 12 that we expected to be there. Obviously, the easiest one is Saquon, but he's hurt, so we don't really have to talk about that. Le'Veon Bell at 18, he's obviously played one less game. If you take his game average, 18.1, he would slot in right behind Derrick Henry and before Leonard Fournette at number 9. So obviously, I expect him to be up there in that top 6 range, especially if Sam Darnold gets back sooner rather than later, because that whole offense improves with Darnold back. So hopefully that happens. Um, and then Todd Gurley at 14. I mean, there's not a lot of surprises for me outside of here. There were guys that I didn't really expect to do well, but I think like the Josh Jacobs and David Montgomery rookies, I thought were both going to get a lot more work.
Oh.
So I really expected them to be at least RB2s, high RB2s. Not happening so far. Um,
I think the
anybody
I
here?
think the
Carry on
yeah, I'm about to say the
Johnson.
big two for me are Marlon Mack and on Johnson. They've obviously Mack got hurt, but both of them being RB2s is surprising to me. I expect them to be a little higher, just because you expected their team to run a whole lot more. And with Indy, I said early on I expected them to run the offense through him, and he's been involved, but not to the level I expected him to be.
Just letting Jamie know that we will cover some of these questions at the end of the show.
Oh yeah, yeah, I see.
Um, Wide receivers. I mean, I look at the top 12, nothing other than DJ Shark sticks out to me.
Right? No, it's all
We've
pretty
got
expected.
Keenan Allen, Cooper Kupp, Chris Godwin. I guess at 3 could be a little bit of a surprise. Um, but him being in the top 12 doesn't surprise me just because of the volume that we thought he was going to get. Julio Jones, Mike Evans, Michael Thomas, Sammy Watkins, Amari Cooper, Tyler Lockett, Kenny Galladay, Emmanuel Sanders. Like, I guess Sanders is surprising just because he's like not human
Right?
and came back from that injury.
The bigger surprise is the
But
guys that aren't up there. There's a lot of names we'd expect
right.
up there that aren't.
But DJ Shark at 10, um, I actually just acquired him in a trade, but I don't love the talent. I don't know that he can stick here. I think he can be a wide receiver too. But I don't know that he'll average 17.3 points throughout the regular season.
Oh no, yeah, probably not. I mean, especially as teams start to, roll coverages to him. I can't see Shark keeping up. And we've kind of seen his play, his fantasy points decline from week 1 on. So, you know, buyer beware. I mean, if you're getting him for depth to see what happens, that's one thing, but don't be trading for him to start him.
So let's go ahead and look at these wide receiver twos and see if we have any surprises there, because obviously wide receivers deeper. John Ross at 15 is surprising to me, but Cortland Sutton at 14 is not. Um, Terry McLaurin, Marquise Brown, uh, Demarcus Robinson. Oh, he's outside of that. So, yeah. So, Terry McLaurin, Marquise Brown, John Ross are the surprises for me, and the wide receiver two conversation. Terry McLaurin looks like the real deal. Unfortunately, he missed last week, um, so he's lower. He's actually averaging 19.9, which would put him at number 4, ahead of Julio Jones
Ahead of a lot of these guys that we're going to talk about.
and Mike Evans. Yeah, so he's definitely a
Uh,
surprise. Marquise Brown, he has come back down to earth after week 1. Still seeing a lot of targets and whatnot, but just not converting those targets into fantasy production over the last 3 weeks. Um, and then John Ross, he's gonna drop obviously because he's out for 8 weeks. But he had one. He had the first 2 weeks were pretty big, and then blah the last couple
yep,
weeks. So you're right. The surprises are the guys that we have not talked about.
there's a few of them.
Devonte Adams not being a wide receiver one. He is 17, um, with a huge game, mind you. Um, DeAndre Hopkins, wide receiver 20, tied with John Brown at 15.2 points per game. Odell Beckham Jr., wide receiver 24, 14.5 points per game. If we go down a little bit more, Adam Thielen, I think the Vikings duo, a lot of people are surprised. I thought they were going to drop, but not this far.
I,
Adam Thielen is wide receiver 38. Um, Juju Smith, wide receiver 39. And Brad, we're a quarter of the way through the season. And you remember, I had this conversation, and people said I was nuts. Because Juju ain't going to drop. Juju could be the number one wide receiver this year. Even with Ben, it wasn't looking great. It's a lot harder to be that number one guy. And I do say that I do expect that he would have been much higher than this if Ben would have stayed healthy. But I think we were already seeing that there was a decline there, without the presence of one Antonio Brown, who we have not mentioned on this list. I'm looking. I know there's more guys here that
Diggs is down
we've
in the 50s.
56, 9 points per game for Diggs. Um,
Alshon Jeffrey's in the 50s.
Corey Davis in the 60s. Jeffrey and Davis in the 60s. But yeah, so there's a lot of guys, man. But I think it's still too early to worry about the. Well, obviously you can worry about Adams because it looks like he's gonna miss another week. But the Hopkins and the Odells and
You have to
you
keep leaning
know,
on them. They're still must starts, even though they've not performed well.
right. The where it gets to where they're not must starts is the Adam Thielens, um, even Stephon Diggs. I don't think they are must starts. You really got to look at their matchups. And you got to dig deeper than the opposing team does this good against the pass, or Yahoo tells me that it's a good matchup because, like when you look at last week, Thielen had a terrible matchup, but Diggs had a good matchup.
Right?
There's different cornerbacks you can be facing, so you got to know which guys those are facing and what's a good matchup for them. So, first off, what receiver do you expect to move up these ranks? And we're going to take out like Odell and Hopkins because they're obvious. But how about some other guys that we've seen, um, whether it's a surprise or not, but that started out slow, that you imagine working their way up these wide receiver rankings?
I mean, the next obvious one to me would be a guy like a Jarvis Landry, um, but I would rather go something, something different. I really like Allen Robinson, the receiver, and I know he doesn't have the best quarterback play, but the talent's undeniable. I got to think that he jumps up at least into the wide receiver two conversation. Low end wide receiver two, but right now he's like right around 40. I mean, and he's just so talented. I mean, he catches everything you throw at him.
Oh, he could definitely move into the wide receiver one convo, and I'm going to tell you why. For one, wide receiver 12 is averaging 16.7 points per game. Allen Robinson at 31 is 13. So our wide receiver groups are a lot more condensed at this part of the year than they normally are. This is normally something that we look at like with quarterbacks of how quarterback 24 and quarterback 8 are only like 2 points per game apart from each other,
Right.
and everybody's just sandwiched in between there. So right now the wide receivers are really condensed. So any of these guys with a good game can literally jump up the leaderboard. Where you get the difference, where the difference really kicks in, is when you're talking about the top six with, averaging 19 plus points per game. Keenan Allen at 24.4. Just look at that difference. That's 5.4 points between 1 and 6, and then you're talking from DJ Shark at 9 at 17.3 to Allen Robinson at 13 is only 4.3. So, and that's 21 spots. So we're kind of seeing that weird positioning of all these guys that can change in a heartbeat.
Right.
So I definitely agree with you there. One of mine is Philip Dorsett. I think he has proven himself in New England. They haven't had to throw a lot, but he's seeing more targets than I anticipated. He's seeing like 7 targets a week. Even last week against Buffalo, he saw like 7. So it was a terrible matchup for him last week, but we know this offense is going to score. If he's their touchdown scorer at wide receiver, um, this dude's going to have a lot of value, and you got him so cheap, especially if you got him after people dropped him when Antonio Brown went there.
He
But
could be
he
huge
is
in this offense.
but he is currently wide receiver 28, and I could see him moving up a decent amount. But I think then, obviously Juju's going to move up. He ain't going to sit down here. Julian Edelman, Jarvis Landry, um, Deontay Johnson could be one that moves up. We talked about him a little bit ago in the show. Stephon Diggs should move up from 56. I think Jeffrey Davis in the 60s and Deshaun Jackson are all going to move up. So those are some of the guys that I'm thinking about. I don't know if you're looking at this list right now. Is there anybody else that you really have that you would want to target right now? Will Fuller at 65. These are all great guys to target right now while they're down there. Um,
Yeah, I
and
think we've
people are
called.
off of
I mean,
them.
those are
Robbie
the names.
Robbie Anderson at 82, averaging 7.2. When him and Darnold both get back on the field together and Darnold gets his strength back, this is a guy that could help you in the playoffs.
That's big.
I would target him everywhere. Um, okay, we got one more position to do. How are we looking on time? Oh, it would be 7 hours again. Um, People send me messages when they know I'm live. I'm like,
I got
what
a
are you
few of those
doing?
as well.
Um, Oh man, I said we'll cover these at the end, and then everybody shut up. It's like screw it. Happy birthday, Chad Waterman.
Happy birthday, Chad.
I think it was actually yesterday, but okay. Tight end. This position has the most surprises, and I tell people this every year, and you say it about QB also.
Hmm.
This right now is the exact reason why you do not spend a lot of capital on the tight end position. Get your running back and wide receiver depth and worry about your tight ends and your quarterbacks later. Do you want to know why?
Go ahead and go
Say,
ahead and tell the audience
say,
at home.
say yes. Just say yes. I don't know why you're laughing at me.
Because I'm
Evan
looking at the
Ingram.
list and I'm seeing the no namers that are at the top of the list.
Yes. Evan Ingram, 18 points a game. Hooper, 17.7 points per game. Mark Andrews, 16.9. Travis Kelsey, the most expensive, 16.7. It is only 4 weeks. I know that. Travis Kelsey could definitely end up being the most valuable, but you didn't need it. You didn't need to spend that money on those guys. You got Darren Waller, who was cheap, 16.4. Will Disley, that was free, 15.3. Greg Olson, that was free, 13.2. Zach Ertz, that was super expensive, 12.9. Delaney Walker, free. TJ Hawkinson in redraft, free, not free in
Right.
Dynasty. Jason Witten was free, 9.6. Like, yeah, that's not good, but like literally the price
I
between
doubt.
him and Austin, you could have got Austin Hooper in like the 11th, 12th round of
Mm-hmm.
redrafts. You know what I mean? You could have traded. You probably could have traded a second round pick for him in a lot of dynasties. And if you needed the tight end that fast, you could have traded, your Noah Fant for him or something. Um, but George Kittle, 11.2, would be slotted in behind Delaney Walker right now.
Yeah, Kittle's been a surprise. He's gotten yardage, but no touchdowns, which is what we saw last year. A lot of yardage.
Yeah, absolutely. Lots of targets, lots of yards, but the touchdown upside, for some reason, it's not there. But you can say the same thing. Will Disley has not had a touch. I mean, Darren Waller has not had a touchdown yet this year,
No,
but it's all volume based. So um, imagine if he goes with the same volume, similar yardage, and then scores 3 touchdowns over the next 2 weeks.
doubles his points basically. I mean, heck, that week against the Vikings where he blew up, he caught 13 of 14 targets. Like, that's just
Yeah,
insane.
just crazy. But this is why you don't spend. I've always said it, man. Take my quarterbacks, okay? Uh, okay, so for one, when you look at tight end 10 to tight end 30, there is a 4 point difference,
That's wild. That's
okay?
insane.
I mean, and when you look at the guys that are averaging, 12 points or more, did you expect Austin Hooper, Mark Andrews, Darren Waller, Will Disley? I mean, half of the guys you did not expect to be in that top 8. People thought Evan Ingram would be there. I don't think anybody thought he would average 18. I don't think anybody, Austin Hooper was top 6 last year, so everybody knew he could be there, but I don't think anybody had him averaging 17.7. Mark Andrews, people probably thought would average 10 to 12 points per game. And he's obviously going to average more than that because he's good. But this is why, especially in Dynasty, like if I get if I get a Travis Kelsey in the draft and it pays off for me that way, then great. I'm definitely going to use him. But I'm not gonna in a startup. I'm not gonna draft a tight end in the first 3 rounds. I'm not gonna draft one in the top 6 probably. But I'm going to try to get these guys. I mean, imagine if you could have literally drafted Hooper, Disley, and Waller in the same team. And guess what, man? You'd be reaping the benefits now by taking a volume approach later on in the draft. Now, obviously, they're hard to get to hit, but Jordan Akins is a top 12 tight end right now. Jordan Akins, free. James O'Shaughnessy got hurt, but he was
Oh
free.
yeah,
Dawson Knox was like a fourth round rookie pick in dynasty drafts this year, free in
tight end
redraft.
too. Yep.
These guys, you do not pay for tight ends. I don't, and I will never. Give me all the running backs and wide receivers, and then if I have to trade for one later, I will. But I want depth at those positions that we're seeing injuries at. Obviously, quarterback, there's injuries this year like no other year in the history of the game. I've never seen anything like it. But when you're losing running backs and wide receivers, they're hard to replace. When you lose a quarterback or a tight end, we're seeing it. They're replaceable. Um, any thoughts on any of these tight ends? Who do you see sticking? Who do you see falling? And
Yeah, I mean, you got to think that the guys that haven't been at the top before will fall some. But I mean, there's so much parity in the tight end group that I could see, a guy like Will Disley stay up in the top, in the tight end one because of the way that Seattle uses them in the volume he's getting, and the fact that they traded Nick Vanette. So obviously he's it now. Obviously George Kittle, you got to think is going to shoot back up, and move up higher. Indy's realizing what Detroit realized with Eric Ebron and his dropsies. He's been dropping a lot of balls this year. So Ebron could sit around the tight end 2 range just because of the way he's been dropping passes. You know, Vance McDonald, if he comes back healthy, should move up. But other than that, I mean, it just kind of is what it is. The biggest surprise to me is a guy like OJ Howard, who's like way down the list. You know,
Way
way
down the
down the
list.
list. I would expect him to make a leap, but you never know.
The problem here is, and I've said it forever. Uh, One, Winston likes Cameron Brate. Number two, Cameron Brate is not even a bad tight end.
Right,
They vulture each other, and OJ Howard is an extension of that offensive line. I did not expect him to be averaging 5.3 points per game through the first 4 weeks, but it's the same thing that we've seen in weeks 2 and 3 with Hawkinson. Like, it wasn't because they don't like Hawkinson in the passing game, it was because they needed Hawkinson blocking more than they needed him receiving.
right. They do. Well, no, I've got guys sending me
Did you even?
questions, so I'm trying to answer them while we're talking about tight ends.
Yeah. Oh, you should probably wait till after the show because I don't even know if you knew what I was talking about. Now I don't know what I was talking about.
What you done?
There. Yeah. Just people, please. Next year when you're preparing for your drafts, look at what you can get at other positions and that depth you can build at running back and wide receiver,
Before,
and target, like if it's dynasty, if Noah Fant doesn't break out, you're going to be able to get him cheap next year. But there's guys on this list, the Blake Jarwins, the OJ Howards, Hayden Hurst, who was offered in a trade at one point, who could get out of Baltimore and maybe have some more value. Ricky Seals Jones possibly. We also have the other injury there in David Njoku. Dallas Goddard's at 36 right now. People are going to start giving up on him.
well, yeah,
Target those
yeah,
guys.
sure. I mean, especially because Zach Ertz, if he leaves, that'd be a different story. But yeah, Goddard's a guy that we loved last year. Definitely a target.
Adam Shaheen and Mike Gesicki at 39 and 41. Like, those are other guys. They might not do anything, but you can target them, get them really cheap,
They do.
and if they pan out,
Yeah.
then it's great. Irv Smith 40. That's how I buy my tight ends. And then when they're third round picks, I trade them. Say, give me, like, think about it. Think about your third round wide receivers and running backs. Like, would you not, like, much rather have, you know, on Johnson right now than Zach Ertz?
Right, for sure.
You know what I mean? Like, it's just crazy to me that people actually take Zach Ertz over on Johnson or over Marlon Mack or, those other guys when you can get, even 3 rounds later, Evan Ingram. Like, ugh.
Yeah, for sure.
Okay, we got some questions to get to. I hope this segment was good for people. You need to tell us what you want us to cover on Wednesday nights. Like, we'll literally do anything.
Especially because
We're
our
both
Sunday
very
night
very,
is covering the daily news. So Wednesday's kind of a
and the week
right.
before. Um, but whatever would help you guys, we want to know. So make sure you let us know because it comes Wednesday. We're both busy. It comes Wednesday, and then it's kind of like, what do you want to talk about tonight? What do you want to talk about? Over on YouTube, Mitchell says, should I trade OBJ? Um, then he gets a little more in depth and says, should I trade OBJ for Marlon Mack? My wide receivers are OBJ, Brandon Cooks, Sammy Watkins, Marvin Jones. My running backs are Zeke and Devontae Freeman. I would try to trade Brandon Cooks for Marlon Mack, is what I would try to do. Um, because I think OBJ, he gets better. He's still in his first year in that system. I think that as the season progresses, he's going to get better. He's seeing the volume; they're just not connecting yet, and that's one big indicator of who's going to break out down the road. And OBJ seeing volume, so that's good for him. Jamie over on Facebook says. Um, he had a question here.
Yeah. So oh,
Landry, what are we doing with Landry? So it's all about the Cleveland Browns tonight. Um, Landry, you got to hold. Um, I think this offense gets better, and it's gonna run, and the passing game's gonna run through Landry and OBJ, and then Landry. Okay, even when Njoku's back, he's not a pivotal part of the passing offense. Like they're going to command 25 to 30% each, and then the other 40% is going to get spread out amongst everybody else. That's how it's going to be. Landry will be fine.
Right.
They'll be fine, I think. So don't sell just because he had a good week, because I still don't think you're getting his value if you do that.
For sure. Agreed. Can't argue it. I mean, they're both. I mean, you're like splitting hairs with these guys. They're both really good receivers, and they both play a similar style in that offense. As the offense gels, they'll get more action, and things will get better for them. And Njoku, Ricky Seals Jones, whoever the tight end winds up being. I mean, there's a lot of fantasy production to go around as this team grows together. So,
Mitchell, he won't, he wants OBJ because he knows that it's such a huge win for him if he trades Marlon Mack for OBJ.
mhm.
Like he's trying to get OBJ at a low price. I would not budge. I would not budge. I would tell him that I'm not trading you OBJ for Marlon Mack. That's what I would personally do. Now, if you really feel that I mean, I don't feel like you have that stud receiver if you trade him. If Brandon Cooks becomes your number one, that's why I recommended him. I think him and Watkins and Jones are basically all real similar. They're going to have big games and they're going to have dud games. But I'm not doing it. I personally wouldn't.
Right? Not me neither.
Um,
So Blake isn't in our chat, but he messaged me a question I think would be helpful to folks. This week, who would you rather start, Robert Woods or Cooper Kupp against Seattle? So I pulled up the matchups, and Robert Woods is going against Shaq Griffin, and it appears that the hardest matchup, Cooper Kupp's facing Jamar Taylor, who Fantasy Labs is saying is like the toughest matchup this week.
that's funny because on my cornerback matchup sheet, Cooper Kupp had one of the best matchups of the week. Which this is a spot where I don't care.
I
Like
think
Cooper
either one of them
Kupp's.
should be okay.
Well, I think though, yeah, but Cooper Kupp's the guy I go to every time. That's Jared Goff's blanket, and Cooper Kupp can beat any cornerback, any slot corner in the league. Like the dude's good, and people just haven't woke up to it yet. Like he goes in your lineup every week. I mean, that's my thing. If you're telling me that you got to start DeAndre Hopkins and uh, you know just whoever your other studs, if you're telling me that he's in that category for me,
Works for me.
dude's legit. I'm actually looking up right
Yeah,
now.
check your. I mean,
I
the
gotta.
site that I use, that's what it's got, and it says that Taylor's a pretty tough matchup. So uh,
Da-da-da-da-da. Cornerback matchups. Where they at? Okay, so I will tell people I use roto grinders. This is what I use for um, my DFS matchups and whatnot. Cooper Cup has the fifth best cornerback matchup on the week. And the way they do it is they rank the cornerback. They have a rating for the quarterback and they have one for the wide receiver. And then it goes by obviously who's has the biggest gap between wide receiver skill to quarterback skill. So the best matchup of the week is Adam Thielen on with DeAndre Baker on him, uh, and that's like a 25-point difference between a 24.13 between Adam Thielen at 60 and DeAndre Baker at 35. Not good. He's highlighted in red because he is not a good cornerback.
oh, it's George Jenkins.
Um,
Yeah, he's rough.
No,
Oh,
DeAndre
DeAndre
Baker.
Baker. Well, he's a
Yeah,
rookie.
so
What do you
Coop.
expect? You know.
Well, I mean, not a 35. I think it's the lowest on the whole
Is it really?
slate. Uh, but at 5, Cooper Cup is a 17.82 difference. He is a 69.09 rated wide receiver. To give you an idea, Julio Jones is 71.77.
Huh.
And then Jamar Taylor is they have him as a medium skilled corner at 51.26, making up a 17.82 difference. So I think he's fine. But if we look, Brandon Cooks, he has a 13.48. I'm thinking about stacking up Rams this week. Woods. He has a 1.3 difference um, between his 63.51 and Shaquille Griffin's 62.21. So, but this is what I tell people. Like Robert Woods, basically blue is good on my chart.
Hmm.
You can start them anytime because they're good wide receivers.
Right.
So all three wide receivers for the Rams,
Good.
you can start. Um, Brandon Cooks is he's going to be boom or bust every week. He's going to have big weeks. Woods is going to be predicated off of volume, and then Cooper Cup, he can do both. He could get you 4 catches but break a 60-yard touchdown and be fine. So I'm starting Cooks. I mean, I'm starting Cup every week. I'm starting all three of them every week, like if I can. So you have a good problem.
Yeah.
Your buddy does.
Uh,
Um, should I start Jared Goff or pick up somebody with a good matchup like Andy Dalton? Back up his Stafford with bye week. Uh, I didn't look at where that game's at because there's a. Where do they play?
well, let's see here.
Where's uh, if Jared Goff's at home, you play him. Like there's the dude's numbers at home are just
Oh,
nuts.
they're in Seattle.
They're in Seattle.
Oh,
Yeah, I mean, I would consider Dalton in his matchup. His matchup's the juiciest of the week, I think. But even Joe Flacco has been fine
hmm.
if he's on your waiver wire. So I mean, I don't really live in the. There's very few guys for me that are must starts, especially at quarterback. All quarterbacks project really well, so you don't need to. You don't have to start somebody. I mean, Patrick Mahomes, you're starting obviously, but I mean, the human quarterbacks, I don't think there's ever very many must starts at quarterback. Do we have any more questions here? I know tonight's been a really quiet night.
Yeah, seen lots of
Cave
walkthroughs.
Goblin said hello. I missed that.
Hello, Cave Goblin over on Twitch. Yeah, I think we're good. I don't see anything else.
All right. Why don't you do a sales pitch, and I'm going to get the end video at the end of the show. Um,
Sure.
Sales
All
pitch.
right. So thank you guys for hanging out with us again. Another week in the books. Hopefully, this week's games treat you well. Again, don't forget to check out rotoheat.com. We do our divisional breakdowns. It's also the hub of all of our information. If you're a paid subscriber, you get all of our statistical analysis. You get our ADP, all the goodies that you want, and it's only like $3 a month, so it's super cheap. Um, rotoheat.com will also get you access to our Facebook group, our Discord chat, so you can chat with us throughout the week. If you're a VIP, you get a special Discord chat that you guys can use to talk to us writers directly. Don't forget to check out rotoheat.com for our YouTube channel. You can get to YouTube from there, or you can go to YouTube and Twitch or any of these other places and look for Rotoheat. We put up a ton of content. On YouTube, we put up a lot of individual player breakdowns. We're working on those constantly to keep you up to date on guys that you may not know about. As you get into the off season, we'll be doing a ton of breakdowns on rookies. So it's a great place to go. And the last note is if you are a person who's interested in getting into the fantasy football world, rotoheat.com is a great place for you. There's a place in there for you to send information to our fearless leader Rick. We're always looking for new content creators, whether that's written or video. We want to add as much help as we can and as much people as we can, and we want to help you break into the fantasy football world if that's something you're interested in. So thank you guys again for hanging out with us. Don't forget to follow us over on Twitter and all of our other social media platforms you've seen on screen all night. Our Twitter handles at RotoHeatRick, at RotoHeatBrad, at RotoHeatFantasy is the main Twitter handle. So we thank you guys. We appreciate all the good words that you've given us, all the encouragement, all the criticism, all the stuff that you guys do. We love it. We love talking football with you guys, and we're happy that we're able to help. And we'll talk to you guys again soon.
Yes, I do want to say real quick, we do have a few T-shirts left on the
Hmm.
website. Okay, so there's not very many left. I got everybody's shipped out the other day, and what I had left over is on there. So we do have some in stock that can get shipped out tomorrow, the next day. So if you want a Roto Heat T-shirt, make sure you go check that out. And then I just wanted to say uh, thanks again for everybody that stopped out tonight, and that will be it for this show. Don't forget, make sure you hit the subscribe button and notification bell so you don't miss any more fantasy football content from the rotoheat.com team. Also, right there, playlist. Hit it. Watch the videos. Do it. You want to, do it.